Mishna Berurah class, where we will be continuing our discussion in Siman 53, chapter 53, Nun Gimel. We've been talking about who is appropriate to appoint as a Shliach Tzibor, as someone to lead the congregation. And just to kind of recap quickly, we have been focusing more in this part of the Siman on someone who can have proper intention during their prayers, that they sound good, that they have proper pronunciation, that their clothing is appropriate, and that they can see. And that we also said now that someone has been appointed to the job, they can simply lead. And we were talking about when we last left off about if a person was appointed or not, if they were supposed to get precedence over somebody else, even if there is a request, if there's a request from somebody else, that they often will take precedence. And with the exception of if someone who's really important asks you to show up or actually to stand up to lead, you should lead. So now we're going to talk about over here some other rules of who is appropriate to appoint as a temporary Shliach Tzibor. So the next halacha talks about if someone is a Shliach Tzibor and they're leading, and you have to replace them, then they shouldn't refuse, because you can't make a pause in the davening, so they need to not pause for that reason. So the times when you would replace somebody would basically be they lost their place and you didn't have a siddur, and someone else knows what it is, so then you have that person step down. And the truth is that you really shouldn't be replacing a Shliach Tzibor in the middle of davening anyway. It's not appropriate. So it's only if it's an absolute necessity to have to replace them. Now, let's say you ask somebody to lead the services. You're the gabbai. You ask them to lead, and the person refuses for one of the following reasons. Says, he says that if someone is requested, this is an agent halacha. We'll try to give a little more perspective. Someone says, I refuse to lead services because I'm wearing colored clothing, or because I'm wearing sandals. That person should not serve a Shliach Tzibor for that specific prayer service, because people who were deniers of the Torah, the word used here is apikorisim, the people who had refused to accept certain Jewish thought as valid for them. But this really refers to they had basically left for other reasons. So in the you even though you didn't hear the actual it's not that they actually denied it. They really were stuck with worshiping idols, some form of idol worship, and so that's why they're sort of particular on this. So if he wants to make that statement, even if they try to change their tune afterwards, you need to be concerned that maybe some type of idolatrous or foreign practice has slipped into them. And the Ramah adds to this: no matter what happens, you can't give them any leeway to change their story. So when you say, however, it depends on how they make the statement. If they immediately say, I can't go up because my clothing is too colored, I need to wear white like they do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, then that wouldn't be a problem. He just thought that you have to wear a kittel, and he's like, I only have the colored clothing, I don't have the kittel. And if you were to explain to him, that's only for a specific time, that wouldn't be a violation of this law, and then you could go ahead to do that. The next halacha, 19. One does not prevent a convert from being a Shliach Tzibor. So some people prohibit or prevent a convert from being a Shliach Tzibor. and those statements have been pushed back, and they've been so even one person, the Shulchan Aruch says, to go ahead and say, no, I don't want so and so to lead the services. If it were not for the fact that they originally had agreed to be the Shliach Tzibur to lead the services. So what does this mean? So the reason why a person would object to a convert leading services is because they don't want them to recite in the Shemona Esrei the God and the God of our forefathers. Okay? Now, a convert can say that for themselves, but a person a convert could actually say that. So the Shulchan Aruch says, and the words of this person complaining are pushed back, because a convert is allowed to say that it was the God of our forefathers, because Abraham Avinu, is the father of all nations. He's referred to as Av Hamon Goyim, and so since he taught the entire world to believe in Hashem, it's therefore permitted for a convert to go ahead and lead. So nonetheless, in general, a person could go ahead and still ask that a person not lead services. So the moment that they're asked for it is because the prayer service is meant to be like the continuous offering, and so everyone has to feel like they are a part of it. And if someone feels like a Kohen couldn't bring the regular continuous offering, they wouldn't be allowed to do that. So it has to be because the nation agrees to it. So then any one person or any one half of the community could say, I don't want this person to lead. So, but but if it's only if the person's been paid for this job, you can't do that because they've already been hired. So, however, this halacha doesn't apply to the Shulchan Aruch. You can't person just get up, because the people who run the shul get to make the decision, and so these rules don't apply anymore. But it's still important to know them. So even though the reason for objecting to a convert is incorrect, a person can do that. And the Ramah brings down that a single person could only do it if they've already requested from the people who run the shul that they would be allowed to do that. But otherwise, you can't just go up and say, I don't want this guy to daven. So if a person hates another person in shul, then you could bring that up to other people. Like, listen, they hate me, and so forth too. And so too, someone who doesn't like the Shliach Tzibur, you also shouldn't call them when you read the Tochacha, when you read the admonitions at the end of Sefer Devarim and at the end of Sefer Vayikra. When you read Bahar B'Chukosai, you shouldn't have. If someone doesn't like somebody else, don't let them read from there, especially if they are the Shliach Tzibur. So one of the questions Mishna Berurah brings down over here is, can you have a person who is a mamzer? Meaning, a mamzer doesn't just mean a bastard person. It means someone where the parents engaged in an illicit relationship. So it means that we know for a fact that a married woman engaged with a man who was not her husband, and we also couldn't assume the husband could also be the father. It would need to be 100% proof that the child came from the other person, which is really hard to prove. It has to be, like, for example, if the husband has been gone for a year and they only know her having been with this other guy, and then the witnesses testify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or if a person was living in consanguinity with a relative that was prohibited by the Torah, and the prohibition is of the level of kares, meaning that it's the most intimate form of relationships. Those also make mamzerim as well, but it doesn't mean out of wedlock. That is a misunderstood term. That is a Christianized concept. A child out of wedlock very much could be kosher, but it also depends on who the father is, but we're not going to dwell on that right now. But let's say someone who is a mamzer. Okay, let's say Beis Din has pronounced that this person is a mamzer, not just when you just call a mamzer. So I don't want that mamzer to lead this davening. Can't do that, as we said. So it's a dispute if they're allowed to do that. one reason why is because it's a question of whether or not a mamzer could even write tefillin. So, since he says that, since later on the Mishna Berurah explains, we say that there are opinions that hold that a mamzer could write tefillin. They could also be a shliach tzibur. However, there are those who say that they should not be a shliach tzibur, but if they wrote tefillin, those would be okay. So interesting little halachas. The reason why there's a problem for writing tefillin is because they might get mad when they write down certain parts of the Torah, and so that's what it comes down to. But we're not going to dwell on that too much, because the mamzer is also a question if they can write a sefer Torah, because when they read Lo Yavo Mamzer B'Kahal Hashem, they'll be mad and not have proper kavana when they write Hashem's name. It's an interesting custom that we have. Okay. Now let's talk about people who are praying on behalf of a deceased relative. So if a person wants to lead services on behalf of their father, and another person wants to recite the prayers in favor of someone else, then whoever the community decides to lead will go ahead and lead. And so the Mishna Berurah explains that even though it's not clear from the text, he's referring to his father is deceased, and he wishes to lead services as an avel, as a mourner. So it's more important to lead services than it is simply to recite the Kaddish. We're not going to get into that too deeply. So the reason why that the community gets to pick is because the Kaddish is something that one gets to have precedence for when you're reciting it for a deceased parent. And the community can't fight you on that. But you can't force the community to accept you to be a shliach tzibur. And so too, like we said, that a single person can't complain about another person being the leader of the shots. So because we don't want people to fight about this. So you have to go based on what the majority of it is, or whoever is chosen to pick other people to lead services, and that's the way it's dissolved. Now, some people have the following rules in their shul. That some people in the shul don't let the mourner, the avel, daven in shul the entire week of Shiva. Okay? They only let the regular shliach tzibur who is appointed to do that. And that's fine, because what they're basically saying is that you should be at your home making your own minyan, and that's fine. And the reason why they don't do that is because they don't want people who don't know the davening to jump in there, and they're going to listen to them make tons of mistakes, and that's just such an embarrassment. And so therefore they want to make sure the person knows how to do it. And if you don't have such a custom in place to do that, then you should allow them to go ahead and lead services, because it's what's called in Hebrew a nachas ruach lames. Nachas means it's a pleasant experience for the person departed. We're worried about the departed's feelings even in spirit and not in their physical form. However, if a person is terrible at pronouncing the words, then you shouldn't let them take the amud, take the stand to lead services. Now, what if you have, these are a whole bunch of cool rules in here. Now, let's say you have an avel and a moya. Okay, so it's a happy birthday, a child was born, and today is the bris. But there's an avel who's within 30 days, right? And he wants to lead services. Okay? So the avel gets pushed off. Okay? Now, on the yard site, that's going to win, but not within Avelis itself. Okay? And this is assuming that the community doesn't have any other rules about it, but the community can always choose whoever they want. So this is a decision by the Magen Avraham, but the community can make other decisions. So let's see over here. Let's see, by Mariv, we don't have a repetition of the Amidah and all the other things. So maybe the community could decide about who does what or whatever. So it basically says over here the community should not be able to make any rules about a mourner davening Mariv, because it's important that mourner do that, and he doesn't have to worry about if he knows how to recite the Shemona Esrei properly. And you shouldn't make a big fight over this. So that's the most important thing, is that the fighting should be reduced. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment. Okay. Another rule over here in the Shulchan Aruch, we're in 21. You should not appoint a shliach tzibur according to what the local magistrate says, even if the community wishes to have them do that. Okay? So the reason why this is not appropriate is because, generally speaking, this is somebody who is not Jewish, and therefore you are not allowed to be influenced by someone that the non-Jews want to be a shliach tzibur. So that's that rule. 22. It's better to hire a shliach tzibur. It's better to hire someone to lead services than it is to have people just jump up and grab the Amud. I agree that is 100% true. So that's the deal with that. Because this way you're not going to have any people who are not very good at leading services lead services, and they'll start darting for the Amud, and everyone's make every excuse in the world. I think I told the story here before. Others have heard it from me. About I heard from someone where his father was the rabbi of a shul, and there was a guy who insisted he had to lead services. I think I've told this story before in one of the other videos. I'll just recap it quickly again. And so this guy was basically sounded like a track over gravel. He insisted on davening and making a big spectacle of himself. And he wanted the rabbi, he told him you shouldn't be leading. He wanted him to introduce him to lead services one day. So he gets up and he says a joke from Reader's Digest about two guys who one's going to Russia and the other guy's going to stay in the U.S. He says, if I write to you in blue ink, everything is true. If I write to you in red ink, everything is false. And so he waits 6 months when the guy is in Russia. Eventually gets a letter in beautiful blue ink. Everything's wonderful. Everything's terrific. Russia is wonderful. P.S. We can't get any red ink. So that's why you should always have someone who is a professional lead services, so you don't have to deal with a situation where you have to feel like you're propping somebody up who is not good at their job. And that's the important thing. So hiring somebody is important. Okay? And this applies to a lot of different things. So the Ramah adds further over here. A person should not get up to daven without the consent of the community. And someone who forces themselves to lead services and does such things, one should actually not respond amen to their brachos. That is, so if you see that a person is doing that, you don't answer amen. It's really, really incredible. Okay, and another thing is the person also shouldn't be blowing the shofar if they're forcing themselves into that job. So you shouldn't fight over any mitzvah of any kind that Mishna Berurah explains. You shouldn't fight over rolling the Sefer Torah. Don't fight over aliyahs, because the main thing was that even in the temple, even in the Beis Hamikdash, amongst the Kohanim, people didn't fight even for things like the bread that was brought the lechem upon him, right? They didn't fight over that bread that was brought that the outgoing people would get. Didn't fight. They let the people who wanted get first, and they waited and they took what was left, and that's a mitzvah. And so therefore you shouldn't be fighting and causing fights over a mitzvah. Okay. Now, if a mitzvah is going to be completely destroyed, or be completely ignored, such as having guests over, okay, or someone's not going to support a local Talmud Torah or yeshiva, and a person can complain about this lack of commitment to something, then you need to make a fight about that. You need to make a complaint and register it, because in order to strengthen a mitzvah, that is a requirement from every single Jewish person. Interestingly enough, it's actually a dispute. He quotes over here Choshen Mishpat 163:1. which is a source for that. But also in the beginning of Kosher Mishpat, it talks about that the judges are supposed to do this as well. That the judges should also compel people to do things like put on tefillin and show up to shul and do other mitzvahs. So that's the main thing. Let's move on to halacha 23. So how do you pay the shliach tzibur? They can be paid from public funds. Okay, so being a shliach tzibur will often make a poor person rich. Nonetheless, or it basically means you'll take from the poor person like the rich person is what they're literally saying. You're enriching this one person. Nonetheless, the poor person can't compete with what a rich person would give, and that really a person should give, according to the Mishna Berurah Siman over here, that they do part of it is income based that you use to pay for the shliach tzibur, and the other part is I forget the term. There's a legal term where it's called a per capita. Each person gives an equivalent amount. So, for example, the half shekel that was given in Adar for the Bedek Habayis, the machasitza shekel, that was a per capita donation. So that's one way you get paid. There's also for shliach tzibur you do something income based. Okay, and that's because you really need to hire a professional. Okay, so that's what the Mechaber holds. Now the Ramah disagrees. He says that you collect half of it based on income, and the other half is per capita. Okay, and he says that is different than what the Shulchan Aruch is saying. That you need to sort of do it equivalently. So that is the ruling over there. And the reason why is because a poor person needs a shliach tzibur just as much as everybody else. But sometimes rich people give more, like we even see by the Nesiim when they give to build the Mishkan. The princes of the people, they gave a little bit more, but one time they waited too long and they didn't need anything from them. So they were like, I guess we have the stones, right? We have the stones for the Choshen HaMishpat. So they're saying because there could be other communities and the poor people, they walk to other shuls too. So that's that. Okay. So what's interesting over here is this is what the Mechaber, this is what the Ramah brings down. So the Mishna Berurah points out that the custom in their lands is that everyone gives an equivalent amount. So one half is per capita, and then they do another donation on top of that, which is income based. So they basically, if they're going to pay them $100,000, 50 is going to come from an equivalent distribution amongst the however many members there are, and then the rest is going to be set up based on income and how much people can give. However, his student, the Levush, Rav Mordechai Levush, who lived right after the Ramah, says if there is no custom, then it's always should be income based, just like it says in Choshen Mishpat 163:1, and that would even be a rule by the mikvah and other such public things as well. So he said there's an argument back and forth about how this works or not. So basically what it comes down to is that it's not a simple answer. So it comes down to local custom. But just know that it's not a simple thing. Let's do. All right. Let's finish with 24. So you have to hire a Rav of the shul and you have to hire shliach tzibur, and they can't hire both. If this rabbi they're going to hire is super awesome, it says Rav Muvhak V'Gadol B'Torah. He is unique and is amazing with his learning, and he knows how to do psak halacha. Then he comes first. And if not, if just stam a rabbi, then you need a shliach tzibur first. Okay, so even without that, you're not not be getting a shliach tzibur. But really, the truth is that if he's a rav at a more tzedek, he knows the halacha. So that's better than tefillah. And also the truth is that learning Torah is the most important thing. And so no one can say to somebody else like, oh, I don't want to pay for this, I only want to pay for that. No, you have to actually contribute equivalently. You can force each other to do that, as Sam Sofer he quotes. And so the other thing that you can honestly say is that if he's such a bucky, he probably could lead services too. That's what it comes down to. So and if he's not so smart, so then you hire a shliach tzibur first, because you you need a regular guy who can just kind of say nice things. It's a luxury, but you really need someone to lead services, and that's why you need to focus on that in order to preserve the proper tefillah. We're going to hold that for today. This class will take a break until after Pesach, and then we will resume with Siman Nun Gimel, chapter 53, halacha 25. Thank you everyone for coming out today.